They signed the ranger log, shouldered a pack, and started toward Kestrel Bend. Everything looked routine. June 13, 1982, 9:12 a.m. Clearwater River Gorge in the Pacific Northwest. Steep basalt walls hold a fast, snowmelt-fed river. The trail is a narrow bench cut into the slope. Evan Hale, 26, and Nora Hale, 24, are on their honeymoon. They drove in from Missoula for camping and a day hike. They planned a simple out and back. Their vehicle is a green 1979 Subaru wagon. The plate is recorded in the ranger station ledger. Next to their names, a note: day hike to Kestrel Bend. Their gear is basic: a blue external frame pack, a lunch kit, rain shells, a topo map purchased. At the desk, a Canon AE-1 35mm camera with a 24 exposure roll. Their plan is clear: start at Kestrel Trailhead, hike to the Kestrel Bend overlook, be back by 5 p.m. They leave a return time note under the windshield wiper. A fisherman later remembers a brief exchange. The couple asked if the bend had a safe bank to get closer to the water. He pointed them toward the overlook. Upstream, a dam was scheduled to release at noon. The river would rise and quicken after midday. By nightfall, the plan has slipped. At 8:40 p.m., their car still sits at the trailhead. The windshield note is damp. The return time has passed. The lodge owner tries their room. No answer. Dinner is missed. Checkout is missed. The call to rangers goes out. A hasty search begins in rain. Headlamps sweep the first mile of trail. Two rangers move to the overlook. Two more work the lower benches. Through the night, radios crackle with short reports. At first light, search and rescue expands. Dog teams arrive. Volunteers line the banks in pairs. A helicopter lifts and flies. Low over the river, running slow spotlight sweeps along the edges and undercuts. Back at the trailhead, the car is checked. A cooler sits in back. Extra clothes are folded on the seat. What should be with them is not. The blue external frame pack is gone. The topo map is gone. The 35mm camera is gone. The rain shells are gone. The list tells a simple story. They likely made the hike. They likely pushed past the overlook. The terrain is working against the search. Fresh rain on hot snowmelt has changed the river. It runs high, silty, and loud. Banks are undercut and crumble when stepped on. Rocks near the overlooks are slick with spray when the dog teams pause at the loudest turns. The river drowns out voices and whistles. By mid-morning, a first working theory forms. It is not dramatic. It is the kind that appears in many river files. An accidental fall or a step too close during the dam's release window. A quick reach for the water. A slip on smooth rock. A misjudged crossing. Rising flow does the rest. The notes stay careful. No rush to label but the river is now the center of the map. Searchers move methodically. They flag scuffs in the dirt. They photograph edges and prints. A short line of markers leads downslope from a spur toward a wet rock shelf. The shelf sits just where the current curls back on itself. It would look safe from above. It is not. Then a detail stops the line. One set of boot prints faces the shelf. Cleanly, a second partial tread crosses the first at an odd angle, toe turned out, as if pivoting. The partial print ends at slick stone and goes nowhere. Radios go quiet for a beat. The team takes photos, measures the spacing, and marks the spot. The rain starts again. The river lifts a little, and the second print, the one that shouldn't end where it ends, has no match downstream. From 1983 through 1990, the river drops each late summer. Searchers walk the edges again. They check gravel bars and route lines at low water. Nothing new turns up. The file settles into a quiet local story. Around campsites, whispers grow. Campers talk about undertow caves and a hidden eddy near the bend. Old guides shake their heads. They call it grief turned into a map. The river is dangerous enough without myths. The Hales do not stop. Each spring they mail new flyers. Before every melt, they call the district office to ask about water levels and tips. On anniversaries, they drive back to the trailhead. They stand at the board. They read the names. They wait a long time before leaving. Rangers keep logging the small things. A note here, a phone tip there. One fall, a hunter reports carved initials on high ground, E+N, cut into a cottonwood above a gravel bar. A ranger hikes out, notes the tree, and marks the map. No other trace is found. Year after year, the pattern holds. Low water, careful walks, no remains, no gear. The river keeps its grip. The case stays cold. In 1989, something odd lands in the stack, an unmarked envelope. Inside is a single Polaroid. It shows a cairn at a river bend. On the far bank, a blurred Figure stands just at the edge of the frame. There is no note, no return address, no one follows up. The picture goes into evidence. The sender never calls. The figure is too soft to ID, and the can in the photo does not match any can on the official map. It starts with a quiet offer. In 2001, during a record low snowpack year, retired Ranger Tom Alvarez volunteers to review old cold files. He asks for a desk, a lamp, and time. He opens the 1982 folder and begins with paper. He reads the sign-in ledger from the ranger station. He traces the Kestrel Trail line with a finger. A scratched-over number sits beside the entry. The hour looks altered. Maybe a 9 was turned into an 8, maybe the other way around. He does not guess. He notes it cleanly. Time may have been edited. He flags the page. Alvarez pulls maps next. Old quads, photocopies with coffee rings. An agency set with hand-drawn closures. On one sheet, an out-of-service timber spur road, shut in the 1970s, drops off the ridge toward the river below Kestrel Bend. It reaches closer to water than the marked trail ever does. It is not on recent visitor maps. He circles the spur. Weather gives him a window. Drought lowers the clear water. Gravel that is usually buried sits exposed. Alvarez calls for a small field look. Not a full search, just boot size and a walk to the bend while the river runs low and slow. They hike the disused spur during a dry week. The road is narrow and choked in places, but it still threads downhill. Alder and fir close over the ruts. The slope opens. Near the bottom, wind carries river sound through the trees. The water looks different at this level. Bars show, root lines show. Old snags lie like ribs. They step out onto gravel that would usually be under 4 feet of river. The inside curve of Kestrel Bend sits to their left. The main current pushes. Wide, the inner water slides back on itself. It is quiet there, the sort of quiet that hides things for years. Alvarez keeps his eyes low. He works in slow arcs from the older line to the first wet stones. He notes silt marks on wood. He notes small pockets where floodwater sorts debris by weight. He looks for straight edges, stitching, metal, anything that does not grow here. The team spreads just enough to cover the bar, no farther. They talk in short lines, old habits. One calls out a tangle of driftwood lodged against a root mass. It sits at the exact place where the curl of current would drop heavy items and leave them. Alvarez moves closer. He kneels, he shifts a branch, and waits for the sand to clear. Under the driftwood, at the inside curve of the bend, a glint of metal catches the light close enough to reach by boot, not by boat. The river is low and clear. Sun bakes a wide gravel bar. Silt lines stripe alder roots like tide marks on a wall. Snag piles lie where floods left them. It is the kind of day when the bottom shows it's kept things. They fan out in slow arcs. A straight seam catches the eye near a root mass. Canvas, not bark. A weathered satchel sits half buried in pea gravel. The zipper is cracked and white with age. Alvarez kneels and opens it by inches. Inside is a folded topo map with a ranger station stamp. Next to it, a silver ring wrapped in an old bandana. Corner. The ring is engraved June 6, 1982. The map number matches the purchase entry on the station receipt from the morning they signed in. 2 simple objects. Both tie cleanly to the couple. 10 yards downstream, another edge shows through sand. A clouded zip bag. Inside it, a Canon AE-1. The body is corroded on the outside. The strap is stiff and dark. Alvarez does not force it. He slips the film canister into a padded pouch. They log the find on a clipboard at the gravel butt. Place, river height, GPS from the ridge. The state lab develops the roll. Most frames are lost to water. To survive. The first usable image shows the Kestrel Bend sign. Behind it, high churning water stacks in white folds. The second image matters. More, it is the last frame. A rope is tied to a limb over slick rock. A hand is in the corner, pointing at the crossing below the knot. They study the knot. It is clean and tight, not a casual loop. Records show no climbing or river training for Evan or Nora. That contrast goes into the notes. The evidence stays careful. The knot looks practiced. The file does not show that skill. For either victim, the satchel and ring say they reached this place. The map says they used official materials from the ranger desk. The camera says someone paused long enough to point at a risky move. The river, lower now, still pushes hard at the outside curve. The inside water slides back and drops heavy things where they found them. They print the last frame and mark what can be marked. Grain, limb, not hand. Then something faint shows in the upper corner. In shadow on the opposite bank sits the shape of an aluminum hull. Small, edged, no reflection. The records are checked. Rental logs list no boat at Kestrel Bend that day. An object you can almost see. A record that says it wasn't there. The picture holds both. The file moves from finds to causes. Investigators write in careful lines. Number leaps no blame. Each theory stands on what the record already shows. Theory A, accidental drowning during a risky approach or crossing. Support is clear. The dam's noon release raised flow. Search notes say the river was high, silty, and loud. Rocks near the overlook were slick. The last photo shows a rope tied to a limb over wet stone, and a hand pointing at the crossing. That image fits a moment when someone tries to get closer to water or to step across before the surge. If one slip happens at the shelf, the current takes over fast. Limits are just as clear. No direct fall site was found. No remains were recovered. The camera does not show the actual entry. It shows a setup and a point. The rest is missing water. Theory B, third-party advice or presence led them toward a shortcut. Support sits in two places. The rope knot looks clean and practiced. Records list no climbing or river training for Evan or Nora. In the far corner of the last frame, a faint aluminum hole shape rests in shadow on the opposite bank. That shape, plus a tied rope, suggests someone else may have been present or gave advice toward the inner curve where the water curls back. A shortcut there would look calm from above. Limits hold this theory back. The photo is grainy and unclear. The whole shape cannot be confirmed as a boat with certainty. Rental logs list no boat at Kestrel Bend that day. No owner steps forward. There is no link from the knot to a person. The file does not show a voice, a name, or a direct aid. Theory C, private land detour via the closed timber spur led to disorientation and a slip. Support comes from paper. The old spur road, closed in the 1970s, drops closer to the water below Kestrel Bend than the marked trail. The satchel and camera were found on the inside curved gravel bar. That road lines up with off-map access can change how a party arrives at the river. A different angle can change risk. Limits stop the line short. In 2001, no gates or footprints were documented on that spur at drought-exposed ground that floods most years. Old sign may not hold. The long gap between 1982 and recovery blurs which path was used. The case file stays cautious. It favors an accidental river entry with unknown assist factors. The words unknown assist stay on purpose. They leave room for what the photo hints at but does not name. One question will not close. Who tied the knot in that frame? The couple in a last-minute try, or someone who knew that river better? The crew moves slow along the order routes, working the same bar where the satchel and camera surfaced. The river is still low. Sun warms the silt lines that mark past floods. A ranger kneels at a root fan and sees something thin caught in the fibers, not wood, not reed. A strip of nylon rope, weather-faded, pressed flat by years of water. They ease it out by inches. It holds together, but only just. The fragment is short, frayed at one end, cleanly cut at the other. Back at the table, they lay it next to a print of the last photo from the Canon AE1. The image shows a rope tied to a limb over slick rock, the knot sharp in the center of the frame, a hand pointing below it. Side by side, twist meets twist. The lay of the strands, the angle of the turns, the way the tag end tucks each line looks like the knot in the picture. The fragment goes to the lab. The report is careful and plain. The twist pattern is consistent with the photo. There is no usable DNA. Sun, silt, and time have stripped the fibers clean. No blood, no skin, nothing to trace. The rope speaks in shape only. It confirms the method, not the maker. With the artifacts logged and the river at record low, the file moves from evidence to status. The county reviews the record again. Timeline, ranger logs, the satchel with the map and engraved ring, the camera and the developed frames, and now the rope fragment that mirrors the knot. The cause that fits the record is the same one that has followed the case since the first night, an accidental river entry in fast water near Kestrel Bend. On July 18, 2001, the bench recorder reads the order. The county court reclassifies Evan Hale and Nora Hale as deceased. Manner consistent with drowning. The language stays careful. The cold case remains open to information. If a new witness steps forward, if a new item surfaces at low water, the file will take it. The change on paper starts a change on the ground. The district adds a seasonal sonar pass to low water protocols. When the river drops, a small team will scan the bends and undercuts. They will log shapes and cross-check with the map. It is not a full search. It is a quiet check, repeated each year. A new advisory goes up at Kestrel Bend. It is posted at the trailhead and again at the overlook. The sign reads simply and plainly, Sudden flow releases. Slick rock. Undercut banks. No wading near the inner curve. Past incidents on file. Hike safe. There is no story on the board. Only facts and caution. The file's last item from this phase goes back to paper. The ranger station in ledger from June 13, 1982. Alvarez has flagged it from the start. A scratched-over number sits next to the Kestrel trail line. The hour looks edited, and no note explains why. Not a glitch on the copier, not a tear, a human change on the page. They ask around, as far as it goes. No one remembers who held the pen last. No initials mark the correction. The number stands there, half then, half now, like a footstep over an older print. The team logs the uncertainty and closes the binder. The act ends on a line that will not settle. The time in the ledger was changed, and no one can say who changed. I tore Y. The camera returns, where the story felt whole for the last time, the high ground above the inner curve, where cottonwood leaves show silver in a breeze and the river sounds lower than it looks. On the trunk near the overlook, a carving holds its place in the bark. E+N. The cut is old now, edges weathered, but the letters still read like a promise left for whoever would come after. A small cairn sits at the trail's end. It is not tall. 3 flat stones, then 2, then 1. Hikers add a pebble and walk. On the river below threads the bend in 2 colors, dark where the channel runs, paler where the inside water slides back. This is where the satchel lay in the older roots. This is where the camera came up in a clouded bag. This is where the rope fragment lifted from the silt and matched the knot frozen in a frame. June brings the families back. Not with speeches, with a quiet routine. They park by the board and read the same cautions the district added after the ruling. They take the path to the overlook and stand under the cottonwood. Someone brushes lichen from the letters with a thumb. Someone else climbs to the cairn and tucks in fresh wildflowers, not store roses. Field blooms from nearby grass, daisies, paintbrush, whatever the season offers. There is a simple plaque at the trailhead now. It carries 2 names and a year. No story, no cause, only a reminder that a river can hold more than it shows, and that some searches are measured in years, not days. Hikers pass, read, and go. The camera holds on small details, silt lines stacked like calendars on roots. A ranger's hand folding the map back into its bag. The band of the ring catching a thin line of light. The same ring that read June 6, 1982. The engraving is still clear. The metal has outlasted the paper and the rope. Metal often does. Then the lens lifts to the bend and sits there longer than usual. No music, just the sound of water in a canyon. A dragonfly hangs and tilts away. A gust moves the older leaves and drops a little shadow over the gravel bar where the team once stood and said nothing for a while. The narration stays with the facts. The court reclassified both as deceased. The case remains open to information. The district scans each low water season and keeps the advisory posted. Search and rescue logs still hold the first night's notes. The ledger still carries an hour that was changed. What remains unsolved is small on the page and large in the mind. Who set that knot? Whose hand pointed below it? And who pressed down a number in the log until it looked like something else? The answers, if they exist at all, drift somewhere between the trail and the curl of current where heavy things come to rest. The shot returns once more to the cottonwood. The letters are shallow but legible. E+N. The frame softens at the edges, and the cairn blurs to shape. The last line belongs to the place that kept this story. The river keeps its own ledger, and some entries never surface.